Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. This is episode 69, believe it or not. And we're joined by a couple of repeat guests, and we have a new guest on the show with us today, representing the People's Party of Texas. If you all want to learn about the People's Party of Texas, I recommend you go to all of the information under the episode description once I put it out today. But they were in episode 25. We had a conversation with OC, Curtis, and Athena. Today, we're also joined by Jeffrey. And I just want to say to all four of y'all, welcome to the show. And we appreciate your acceptance of our invitation. And I can't wait for this big conversation.
Thank you, Kiko, for having us.
Yeah, we're glad to be back.
It was a lot of fun last time.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
No doubt. And so before we get started, just a few ads, small, minor things. I just want to say thanks to everyone that follows Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum on YouTube. We're also available on any of your podcasting platforms of choice, but we are going to emphasize more the video component. We've reached 90 different countries. We've reached all 50 states. So this small platform over a little bit of a year's time has reached millions of people around the world. Presumably they will continue to listen and follow us. We don't have the numbers that reflect the interest level, but that doesn't mean that people are listening. People are listening to us and they're following us. And so I urge my audience to support independent media in general. There are lots of great channels there that are pushing the envelope and really trying to get people's rights heard, acknowledge people's existence, and also help the working class. And so that's what we want to do in this forum, is to inform people, educate people, debunk a lot of these tools that are used by the elites to divide and conquer the people's minds, especially the people's minds. And so we want to create a forum and a safe space for people to have free thought, think for yourselves, regardless of the pressure from your friends, family, inner circle, or people who you deem as opposition, because we're really in this together to fight against the 1%, I guess, if you want to put it that way. And the mind is a powerful thing. And we just try to get people to think a little bit outside of the box. There's not a lot to ask to subscribe for free to Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. It doesn't cost you a dime. I'm not going to ask for any money from you. I just want your subscription, and you tell your friends and family, and hopefully that snowballs into something else too. And I also want to give a shout out to Amira Napier, Empathic Times, EMPHATIC Times. She was on episode 66. I've been promoting her channel heavily lately because she has a lot of similar content, and she's really a free thinker, free thought. She does everything on her own. She has a lot of original content. So subscribe to Amira Napier's channel as well, Empathic Times, episode 66, to watch her if you want to find out more information. I wanted to get Jeffrey involved because he hasn't met the audience yet, and just give us a brief introduction into how you got introduced to the People's Party of Texas and your involvement.
Yeah. So first things first, glad to meet you. Happy to be on the show. My name is Jeffrey. Basically, I got to meet these guys from a different organization that we all kind of joined and we're in. I really like the vibe. Like I always kind of say, one of my mottos are that what I was looking for when I wanted to volunteer, do something, or get into the space was to be a what I call boots on the ground person. Like there are a lot of groups, and I've joined a lot of groups, and in over the years. There's been a lot of meetings, there's been a lot of emails, but nobody was like doing anything, like getting actually in the muck and doing stuff with the people. So we joined this, I joined this other organization. I honestly still remember, like, Athena was the first person that like contacted me. And yeah, her vibe is just let's do it vibe. Like, you got an idea, you can pitch it, you can explain it, and if it makes sense, then she just kind of on. So I really like that reception that I got. From that particular group, things kind of went south. So it felt like we all went our separate ways, honestly, for a while. It took me like a year, honestly, to get in touch with her again. And I just honestly, I tried it out, like, hey, we met about a year ago. in this group. I'd really love to get in touch with you and see what you are up to, because I knew that she had kind of formed her own organization. And yeah, that was at the beginning of this year that we kind of like connected back again. And it's really been great. Even in that other group, I remember the only time we did something was when the people here in this core group like suggested that we should do, I think it was like a cleanup on the Trinity River. And that was like the one boots on the ground again activity that we did for that group. And it was something that we ourselves came up with. So we were like, well, there was a lot of asking for permission in that other group where you had to like go through our hierarchy of can we do this and can we do that. And my style has always been to ask for forgiveness after. So basically, yeah, we just form our own group where we can do stuff, and if the people don't like it, they'll let us know.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'm so happy that all of you are with me this Sunday morning because you all do so much great work for the community. And I want to highlight the work that you all do for the community. You've had some events in the past, and you have some upcoming events that are very important. But before we get into what the People's Party of Texas does in the community, we'll get some things cleared up. I wanted to open up a couple of issues before we start that are societal issues, more macro issues, but I know that the People's Party of Texas probably has views about it, and anyone can answer these questions when I ask them. The first thing I've been thinking about lately is the border. And I'm normally not a person that's interested in this topic because I'm a proponent of open borders personally. But people aren't here to hear what Kiko has to think about this. I want to really get you all's view because you all are in Texas and you have a proximity with something like this that I don't have a proximity to necessarily. So I guess my initial question is there any validity to concerns from a lot of these, I guess I'll call them conservative lawmakers, when they talk about these people coming to the border, there's a border crisis. You always hear about this in the news. I guess that's my first question. Is there validity to that? And how could you speak to that based on any personal experiences and just being in the state of Texas in general?
I would say the only validity would be the danger that comes with making that trek, and the inherent like just negative things that'll happen. People who will get involved in trafficking people
Take advantage.
and taken advantage of. And yeah, I think that when you're talking about the border crisis, this is just me personally, the real discussion or conversation or whatever should be had on, why do so many people want to leave their country and try to come to this country? What is happening, or what has happened, or what is going on in these other countries that is causing all these problems? And the answer is the American foreign policy and the wars and the coups and the deposing of duly elected leaders and the economic
Sanctions.
Not even sanctions, just I don't want to use that word, the economic
Embargoes? I don't know,
marauding that's going on. There's no other real way for it. I mean, the people are yeah, it's the American foreign policy that is the real discussion. It's not just it shouldn't start with like whatever, oh, they're coming here to whatever, take our jobs, or they're rapists or whatever. It's like, why would you want to like walk 1,000 miles and leave your home to go to, like, how terrible would it have to be for you if you lived in fucking sorry, can I swear on this?
Of course you can. This
Okay.
is free talk. This is free talk, OC.
If you lived in fucking Nebraska.
It's Sunday morning, OC, how dare you?
Yeah. Jesus understands. If you lived in fucking Nebraska, what would cause you to walk 2,000 miles to go to a different country to start a life for you and your children. It'd have to be like pretty terrible. And I think, you know, like that should be the real discussion of like, why is the American, why is it our policy to destroy these other countries economically? We have to deal with that we're all benefiting from that in some way, or at least we're all complacent in that if we don't speak up and, you know, do something about it. But yeah, that's my take.
Just to kind of piggyback off on that, because like just on the phrase we're all benefited from this, I'm starting to question how much we actually are benefiting from this, like as a collective, which is the kind of like a mythology that is sold for acceptance, right? If something were to, I don't know, go horribly wrong, and all of a sudden peace was to break out in the world, and the United States was no longer, you know, putting its fingers into every single pie that it could possibly do as far as like governments around the world, what would actually, we don't actually know that. We don't actually know a world where we're not manipulating and we're not meddling in other people's affairs. So to kind of like answer the question, the original question, I don't necessarily think that I have an experience that I can explain as far as like what's happening on the border. I think I would say it's more like you guys, where you do hear about, you know, people getting taken advantage of. I'm more, you know, because I'm close to the Hispanic community, might have a little bit more knowledge about what it takes to make that track. But honestly, like I think what happens in the US is that a lot of the time when we're talking about these kind of issues, to give an example, like the story starts, like when people are saying the narrative, I give it the equivalent of saying, like, if I tell you this story that, oh, breaking news, there was a little blonde white girl that was savagely killed because she was found sleeping in the bed of, or she was found sleeping in a bed and 3 bears came in the house and they just killed her. They attacked her and they killed her. Like, that's one story. And we could go with that story, but you know, that story, we all know that story. A little girl came into somebody's house and started doing stuff and, you know, using things and not doing what she was supposed to do and whatever. But you can start that story where it makes sense different ways. And that's what happens in America. Like, everybody's just, okay, there's a mass of people at the border. Yeah, we're sanctioning the hell out of Venezuela right now. We're Nicaragua is still recuperating. I think they have like a right-wing government right now that we had a hand in putting in there by non-democratic way, let's just say. So yeah, and that hasn't been happening last week, last month, last 10 years. That's been happening for decades. So yeah, chickens are coming home to roost.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the way, and we got to keep in mind too, we're within the context of an election year. And I feel like every issue that's, whether it's created or it's an organic issue, is always going to be found as an opportunity for whoever is trying to capitalize off the opportunity to broadcast whatever they want. And this is going to be no exception. You're going to hear all this crap with these so-called debates. You know, you're going to hear the question about the border come up all the time. You're going to hear a lot about foreign policy and war. To me, that is U.S. foreign policy, is war. I don't know what foreign policy the U.S. has besides creating wars. But something that's just obviously happening. You see the news now. Everyone all of a sudden is let's protect Israel, you know. And you know, before I get accused of being an anti-Semitic person, you know, for suggesting that you may see some of the flags popping up on Facebook and stuff, I just think it's interesting that, is this going to be just another Ukraine situation? We know that this is an established history between Israel and Palestine, but is this some kind of a way to justify funding Israel more money now and almost hiding the Russo-Ukrainian situation? What do you all see as this possible story develops? Do you see anything like this occurring? Is Israel going to be a new Ukraine in the moment type deal with people all of a sudden we got to give our support behind Israel? What do you all see coming from that?
I literally said that this morning to OC. I was just like, they are. I did the George Bush thing where it was like I meant Ukraine, I meant Israel, but I said Ukraine, and I was like, well, that's what is happening, where they're literally giving. I think it's just like we are actively always in a war or a Cold War as the United States, and now it's just like, okay, we want to get the people more involved because then we can have more of that that fake permission, and so yeah, I think it's just another I hate it immediately. Like, I've never heard Joe Biden be so quick, and he was so quick to be like, no matter what, we are going to support Israel. And I'm like, no matter what? You should never say that about anything. Like, no matter what. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's just like the journalist Shireen Abu Aklek. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but she was the journalist that was killed, I think, last year by the Israeli Defense Forces. And I was thinking, when we did our very first episode, we talked about this issue of Palestine, and we were saying if that would have been Anderson Cooper or any prominent U.S. journalist, and that would have happened to him, what kind of news that would have made? And this woman was like one of the most respected people in Al Jazeera, and you hardly get any kind of Western press. I mean, it's just the usual independent outlets, but no kind of overall widespread support. And it's just, I just don't, I understand it. I understand that both parties are funded by AIPAC and all these different lobby groups that advocate Israel affairs. But the fact that this has been going on so long, this conflict, and Palestinians have been on the receiving end of most of this damage, and then one time this happens, Hamas now, which is a group, as far as I recall, was actually funded by us. Like this, that's the crazy thing about it. These groups that are the so-called terrorists, we end up funding if you look at the history of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have some Jewish activists come out and they get called anti-Semitic when they're pointing this same thing out. Spike Cohen put a post up this morning. He's been on the forum twice, and he was pointing this out that that the U.S. funded Hamas, right? And then they took his status down. And they called him anti-Semitic, and he's Jewish. But that's what they do, though. It's absolutely insane that that people are. I don't know if it's the fear that they put into people. I think some of it has to do with censorship, and then some of it's just a general narrative. If you hear something so much, I guess if 80% of the people are on board, that means there has to be some validity to it. And I guess that's what's happening to people who may not even know about the history of the region. They just automatically take the default side, which is the Israel side.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is tied to the American like Christian connection. And it's like we as Americans feel like we need to protect our homeland, our Christian homeland. And it's like, well, that's a completely ethno state, and we are now saying we want to protect like what we would have called an apartheid state 60 years ago, which when it started, but we didn't, like we were okay with this.
Yeah.
Well, has been has a history of supporting
Yeah,
I mean, that's the playbook, man. Like, since the Mujahideen, like I can't name every single instance, but it's like Iran Contra, didn't we fund
I mean
ISIS,
Osama.
So yeah, he
Yeah,
worked for
okay.
he was on the payroll for a while. We're funding the bad guys in Ukraine.
So
Um,
Oh my gosh, the
like the Canada, the Canada, yeah. Anyway,
Canada awarding a Nazi thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
We're really going.
it's not an accident at this point. This is just like the way it is, and they'll tell whatever story they have to tell you. They'll tell you that, you know, weapons of mass destruction, or they'll say that Putin is evil, or they'll say that, yeah, Israel is they protect our fucking Christian homeland, or whatever story they have to say. That really doesn't matter. The end result is like, we need war, we need death, we need to sell weapons, we need to take over resources. We're a pirate ship for a country. We just sail in and just take whatever we want. We give out predatory loans that are the collateral is all the natural resource. Like, we don't allow these countries. It's just like, how does Venezuela or Nigeria, they have all this oil? Like, why? Why aren't they admit, like, they have all these natural resources? Just like, why? Like, what? I wonder why.
We built them a library one time, so now we own all of their uranium.
I wonder why. Yeah, Congo has like the most valuable mineral right now. It should be another Dubai, and yet I don't know, they're not, and nobody knows why. Everyone's just like shrugging their shoulders, and yet there are a lot of people getting really rich. War is a big business, and I mean, it is the business of the United States, and so it's whatever story we have to tell. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm not surprised. I feel like this was a long time coming when it comes to Israel. Like, it's just like the escalation. Yeah, it's very sad. I don't know.
I think it's really scary to a lot of to states, like what Hamas recently did. You know, capitalist states are getting weaker now. We see it. Like, that's a lot of the problems in our society are because these states are failing in big ways, you know, and not just in political sphere, but obviously, you know, when it comes to climate, like they are destroying themselves out of existence, and they see that. So I think things like this, they show how weak states are. If you've been watching, my eyes have been glued to like Al Jazeera and some of the like Chinese news sites, just trying to get an alternate perspective on what's going on. And it's Israel has taken a beating, and they're arguably next to us the most powerful military in the world. And they just got their asses handed to them. They think it could happen to any of these states, and I think they're all really scared. And you know, it's easy for us to judge what's happening over there because, one, they're not us, so we can say okay, and then it's easy for us to paint Hamas in a negative light. Well, you have this like Islamist, fascist rebels that are attacking this, you know, state that we all have grown up loving. So it's to paint that narrative. But if you think about these things kind of happening in like Mexico or in Central America, or even potentials of that kind of thing happening here, as our own cities and states deteriorate more and more. You think of our own border, for example, like we just mentioned, we are very weak, and I think events like this scares people because they want to believe that their states can protect them and that they can last forever. So that's why they have dared to challenge whatever, you know, power we build for ourselves. So I think it's it's a sign that the system around us that this world has been built up around is weak, and it's fracturing in a big way, and it's not sustainable, right? Russia, Ukraine's the same thing. Like, these states, that's what, whenever they don't know what to do, whenever their power starts to crumble, start a war. Like, that's always the reaction, right? That's what we want to do, right? That's why Biden has been pushing us to try to start something with China. Like, please start a war. That's all we want. We want a war. So whenever a war does pop up, like, yes, we can give money, we can start exploiting, we can get people like the American people like rallied around something. And I think the American people have been more and more skeptical over the years, and I think most of us really don't buy it anymore.
Oh, you're muted, Kiko.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a part, it's just like a few seconds where I popped out. I don't know if you all lost connection or not, but it's all good now. Before we go into the People's Party specific, and just as far as the structure of the People's Party, because I'm still a little confused personally, and it's not because of you all, it's when you introduce new concepts to people and the audience, even out, I kind of in a way represents the audience because like I know a little bit more maybe in some areas, but the audience asks great questions. I get a lot of questions from people. Email me at kikofreethinker@gmail.com. And people would ask me like, what about the structure of this, when it comes to the People's Party? And I've asked people who are in politics, they've never heard of horizontalism before. And so we're going to get into that in a second. But before I ask that, what about the 2024 presidential cycle? I know on your site, you say that the People's Party of Texas isn't a party per se. So maybe you could explain that to the audience who may not know who the People's Party of Texas is. What you would refer to as a traditional political party. And is there anyone that's running in the field from your vantage point that has any of your views or any of your principles for this 2024 presidential cycle?
I will say just real quick that like I like that in theory there are more candidates. Quality is also really important. And so like you're saying that aligns, I'm like, and it doesn't surprise me about the horizontalism thing because it's like, it is so like they are so dependent on hierarchy and a lot of the like politicians like in the thing. And that's like what they thrive off of. They love it, And so like, they're the opposite. They're like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. Like they don't like populism as far as like it's a derogatory. They're like people making choices.
How can no one be in charge? Like that's
exactly. What do you mean? Well, who's in charge? Like we all are.
We all are, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't like that. But as far as like, I don't know. I've heard some, like I am so anti-duopoly. I personally can't look at the two-party candidates. I'm sick of them. I don't want to be a part of it. So as far as the other candidates, I haven't heard anything from the Libertarian Party, which doesn't surprise me because they're like so corporately co-opted. Like I'm just like, they're just waiting till Biden tells them to endorse him. So it can't be Trump. Oh no. I'm like, whatever. And there are some good, the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, is actually running a candidate. Celia de la Cruz
Claudia de la Cruz.
Yeah. I am so questionable about Cornel West, especially with the independent. I go back and forth whether or not he just wants a cult of personality to follow him, because like I love so much of what he says, but then he has Trump derangement syndrome like nobody's business. So I don't know. I don't know. And I like the idea of some of these Democrats running independently, but then I'm very cynical right now. So I'm like, they're all just trying to like split independents up. They really don't want us to be having a movement. They want us to be, this one issue that you disagree with, don't come together on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it may be a big issue, whatever it is, but I get worried about that. So I'm excited, but I'm also like, I see all these Democrats that are like talking about running as independents, and I'm like, what is your real game? But I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, what we would, sorry, go ahead, Kiko.
No, you go, Curtis.
As far as like what I would demand of any candidate that would come out and say, I am anti-capitalist, like, please, somebody say that. If somebody said that, I would 100%. be behind that person, but no one has the guts to say that in this country right now. Even, I don't, maybe if, you know, PSL would, if their candidate says that, then sure, I'd vote for him. If they,
It's in her platform is
Yeah.
the end of capitalism. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like what's happening right now in 2024, like the thought that keeps me excited about it, and yes, there's a lot of different candidates, you know, to choose from. It looks like right now, you know, they don't necessarily have the best chances. We still might get, you know, our, you know, shit sandwich and, you know, diarrhea soup choice that we every year. But I am excited of the possibilities. And I keep telling people, this is how I convince, or the only thing I tell people when I have this conversation as to please consider a third party candidate is, say what you will about, you know, how we did this and how it ended up and the history of it. But the last time we had a three-way race, we ended up not having slaves all across the country. That's pretty good to me. Say what you will about how that ended up happening. You know, I'm still waiting on my, you know, 60 acres of a mule. Is that what it is?
The 40.
That was, oh, I added 22
40.
acres.
Inflation,
You know,
yeah,
compound interest, compound interest. It should be, it's 60. By this time, it's 60 acres, guys.
And two
Two
mules.
mules
Yeah,
on
2
it.
mules.
Got to adjust for inflation.
Exactly. You gotta adjust for inflation. So say what you will about all of that, but ultimately, the last time I remember thinking of the United States and there was a three-way run for, you know, something important, yeah, we nuked a pretty dark part of ourselves. I'm willing to take the gamble on that.
Yeah. There's no good argument for voting for a different political party than the major two. If that candidate more closely aligns with their views, there is no good argument. I don't like getting into the whole fucking general election bullshit. I will vote for the most anti-war candidate, but I think a lot of these people are just full of shit trying to make money or whatever.
It's just another like adult gambling. Like, I mean, there is
Yeah.
regular gambling for adults. I don't know, there's not child gambling.
It feels like prom
But-
king.
Yeah, it's just
sort of thing.
I know it matters, and all voting matters, but like we talk about with horizontalism, like so much more of democracy is doing stuff in your community than just the presidential election. But I get that it's very important, and it is like I can't stop looking at it. It's like a car crash. I hate it. I really like I consume too much media, and particularly that, but it's such a waste.
It's exciting, yeah. No,
Yeah, it's exciting.
They know how to whatever.
It's terrible.
But Athena, honestly, Athena, you saying what you just said though, it makes me start to. First of all, I'm not on anybody's like I guess parade or their train or whatever, because full disclosure, Cornel West is probably going to come on the show. That's pretty much a given. RFK, I reached out to, his team is in communication with me, but the whole idea of just running as an independent to me is very skeptical, because why all of a sudden are these people going independent? Are these people in it really to win? Like, I don't even believe that they are, because what you said there is important. These people who are normally associated with one side of the ruling class, now they want to break away and run as independent all of a sudden. So, like, what is the agenda behind that? Like, I'm still trying to figure out, why are these people running as independents? And they say it's because it's ballot access, but I just don't believe that someone of this stature of Cornel West, RFK Jr., whoever it is, you mean to tell me that we know about these bullshit rules that are rigged against third-party candidates and independents, but they don't know about it? They just not realized and came to this conclusion because they had a bad experience.
That's
Come
just
on,
horrific,
I just don't believe. I think they're both full of it. But like I said, they may prove me wrong, but I just don't see it happening. I believe that this is part of some agenda that we may not know about. But I'm just trying to figure out what is the reasoning behind it, because they both have profiles already. So there has to be some other reason. Is it monetary? Is it something else? I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like a cult of personality grift or something.
Yeah, that I
but
feel like
don't-
that's best case scenario, is that they're just a sociopath or something. Worst case scenario is that they're part of a bigger plan to like waste people's time.
Mm,
Because all that money and first another thing, spending all that money on a stupid election,
mhm.
it's a waste.
Right.
But having more people in the race, having people that are gonna drop out next July and endorse Biden, like that's what's gonna happen. Sabs asked Cornell, like, "Are you going to?" And he's like, "Oh no, there's no way. There's no
Mhm.
way." I'm like, "That's not even a guarantee.
Yeah.
You're just saying that's no way. That's no way." Like, okay, Bernie said that, and then like a week later he dropped out.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Bernie
I
2.0.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Sorry, people who love Cornell West. I know a lot of those people follow me on here. I mean, hey, you want to ask me my opinion and stuff? I'm just telling you what I feel. So don't ask me if you don't want me to tell you what I feel. Because people have been asking me, Kiko, what's your take on this? You want to know my take? Do you really want to know it, or do you not? I don't know, but let's focus more on the People's Party of Texas now. Now that we got a lot of the drama out of the way, but I know some people are into the entertainment, and like you said, Athena, it is attractive. It's like, gosh, we all got our shows we watch on TV. Like shit, I've been on a Big Brother binge lately, and I never got into stuff like that. But the last few years, I'm just like, oh gosh, I gotta find something to entertain me, from this lunacy of the world. But you talked about the horizontal structure of the People's Party of Texas. I'm still confused about the circles. I know that that's associated. We talked about sociocracy the last episode when we did episode 25. But what are the circles about to the audience who may not have any sort of connection with this structure of the People's Party of Texas?
To me, circles, when people ask me, Curtis, what is a circle? And I see that as the main way we are organized. As far as the structure, it's supposed to be, and yes, it is ambiguous because we want it to be ambiguous. We want it to be decentralized. When the People's Party of Texas stands up a circle, what we're saying is we are empowering people to go out and do whatever work they believe is important. For us right now, the focus is a lot on mutual aid, giving things to people that need it. There's a big focus now on harm reduction, trying to keep people healthy, especially people that society has otherwise discarded. And rather than seek, like Jeffrey said, rather than seek permission to do those things, we want people to feel like they are empowered to do those things without having to ask permission. So to us, you want to do good work, you need a network of support, because it's hard to do that alone. Like very few people can just go out and say, I'm gonna go start doing stuff. How can we tap into that network? That's what circles are for. So you join a circle, it's not like there's a circle that's giving orders to all the other circles. Each circle can act independently, provided that we all agree to the same goals. But even better, you're now tapped into this bigger network. So now you need help with something else. Hey, I need help with setting up a website or a YouTube channel. I need help with getting linked with other organizations in the local area that I don't know about, maybe because I'm new to this space, or maybe I'm uncomfortable reaching out to other people. Great. We have circles and people in those circles that can help you get connected. So it's all about decentralization. It's all about empowering people to do what they need to do. And that's locally, as opposed to big, statewide campaigns. We're more focused on local work. And if you don't know, if you want to get involved, but you're not sure how, the more circles we have, the more options you have, right? You can try things out. You can get exposure to a lot of different areas in the activist or leftist or whatever you want to call it, progressive anarchist space, whatever you want to call it. You can get that exposure by joining a circle, and just trying your hand at things, seeing what you're good at, seeing where your talents lie. So creating a decentralized network where people are empowered to go out and do the work, to build real democracy, as opposed to whatever we have now, which is like about the farthest from democracy you could possibly get.
There's a way of also kind of to extend what Curtis is saying. There's a way that having circles also lowers the cost of entry just for like regular folks, because a circle can be anything. It can be honestly any project that any person in any community decides that this is something that we need locally. And if they can find, let's say, other people in the community that can agree to that is also needed, then yes, they come to us. And that's exactly what Curtis is saying, that we help them with the infrastructure, the organizing, everything that, you know, that project might need. And that project itself becomes a circle, right? If other people want to join that project, then yeah, other people from other circles that we have will join that project. So again, we were at a particular event with DREAM harm reduction, and there were a lot of like young people that came up and they were like, hey, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that. Some of them were very niche situations, but that is exactly what we want. The people in the community know what they need, and we want that input. We live in a world where everything is pretty much set up to tell everybody to really shut up. Just like nobody wants to hear. You know, there's a lot of social media, there's a lot of technically, you know, connectivity right now, but the world is honestly set up so that, you know, the talented 10% are the ones who are reaping all the benefits of everything. And we're here, you know, someone better than me said these words, the untalented 10% also have ideas. And we're here to show those ideas and how they could honestly change the world.
I like I like the way that was put. I haven't heard it explained like that before. The untalented 10%. I like that.
That's not my line.
I had something what you both just attacked. Then you talked about the emphasis on the community, on each other, and the decentralization aspect of it. Is there anything with the person that's operating under this traditional system of hierarchy? Is there anything within that system that they can, I guess, relate to what you all are about? I guess if you think of the caucusing, for instance, you see this in a lot of political parties. Are there infrastructures in place for those people to already have those types of decentralized elements in it? Or is that just something that's antithetical to what you all represent in the first place? Or is there any sort of commonality whatsoever with existing infrastructures?
I would say two things, like just to kind of relate them to people that are experiencing it for the first time. It would be like, so the circles, instead of it being like a pyramid, it's like we are a chain. So we're just linked. And so instead of like a pyramid where the top may not communicate with the bottom, they may not understand, with linking, it's like a telephone. So it's like, okay, everybody's actually communicating. We're all on the same page. We all, like Curtis said, we have the same goals. We're here for the same reason, even if our area of expertise or interest is very niche. And so like it's just the other part I would say is leadership. There's still leadership, and I think it kind of redefines that, one, that anybody can be a leader, even if you're terrified of being a leader. You can just facilitate or take notes or keep time, and then all of a sudden you're a leader. Or if you don't want to be a leader per se, you can just learn leadership skills. Everybody, even if you suck at everything, can learn leadership skills. And so like those are things that are in the hierarchy that aren't necessarily bad, leadership and leadership skills and working together and communicating. But this is maybe something that gets rid of the communication problem with top down. Like you kind of talk to people like, have you ever felt like especially somebody, Curtis got these new pamphlets and it's like how to fire your boss. And it's like, but have you ever had a boss that it's like, they're not doing their job, like they should be fired. Like I want to hold them accountable, but there's no means because the top down. Whereas if you're linking, I don't know, that would kind of be how I would connect it or like translate it to other people.
Yeah, I think I sort of like what you said there is like if you want to find common ground between those two systems, like I think in the People's Party of Texas we still have common goals. Like there's still a common ultimate like set of goals that we're all working towards. So I don't want, when we say horizontal democracy or these circles and maybe some are niche and this and that, I don't want people to think that there's no I don't know, melody to it or overarching like direction. It's not directionless. That's what I was looking for. We are still moving, we're still progressing, but we're just going about it in a different way. So like I'm sure these horizontal groups or I'm sure these hierarchical groups, they have a goal, and we also have goals. We're just working towards it in a different way. But yeah.
And you all, I know, probably have communication and connections with local groups in Texas that do similar types of work. But I think we covered that some in episode 25. We talked about some of the linkage, but I want to make one thing clear for my audience, just so there's no confusion. The People's Party of Texas is not affiliated with the Movement for a People's Party, because I know people see that a lot, the People's Party this, the People's Party that, and that can be confusing, but the People's Party of Texas has no relationship with that, just to make that clear.
Correct.
Mutual aid is brought up a lot on your website. It's something that I'm trying to understand more, just a deeper understanding of mutual aid, because I guess my biggest point of contention in my mind is how is this supposed to be operated? If someone's operated mutual aid the way it's supposed to be done, how does that look on the local level, for instance, for someone?
So the one concept is like the free store, and it could literally be anything. Just, oh, I have this, or I'm going to bring a bunch of this. I saw this was on sale. And so or you just happen to donate, or you have a garden and you have a bunch of whatever. That's pretty much it. It's just like, it's like, why do we have to exchange money for something? Like if I have a bunch of this, and then maybe next time I don't have anything and I'm the one taking stuff, but like that's what mutual aid is versus like charity. It's like, we're not just like, this is not just like, oh, it's like, no, we are a community. We happen to have access to these goods right now. And in some cases, other people do mutual aid, like directly with corporations or with small businesses. And that's another way. But I don't know how mutual it is. Maybe with the small business, I believe it more, but when it's like a corporation, that's like Chick-fil-A dumps a bunch of salads somewhere, for instance, which is cool, but it's like, how much credit do they really get on the like mutual aid scale? Is that really just like a tax write-off? Mutual aid, I think, is like literally community, is how I would differentiate it. I don't know.
So if we're talking about stuff like GoFundMe, for instance, is that a case-by-case thing, or is that a classic example of mutual aid? Because I think my audience is familiar with that type of thing for like a cause and people give money to it, but is that actually a mutual aid, or is that something else?
So to kind of maybe clarify, like to me, as far as what we're doing in mutual aid, honestly is, and I'm not originally from America, so I don't know how much this concept needs to be necessarily introduced, but we're going back to it takes a village principles, right? So that's what our approach to mutual aid is, which, like, given the example of, you know, not to pick on Chick-fil-A, but Chick-fil-A giving a bunch of salads to whatever, or chicken sandwiches, whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, then we're talking about feeding a man for a day versus teaching a man how to fish type of thing, right? With mutual aid, and we do this all the time, all of us, you know, your neighbor asks you for a little bit of sugar today and you give it to them just because, you know what, tomorrow you might need a little bit of sugar. So it's literally that versus, you know, having people just receive something without the expectation that they will be called upon in the future. Does that make sense? That's the key to mutual aid. That's the key to the horizontal structure also, because all of these hierarchical organizations, you know, not to like drag the people who are in these different organizations, but there's a way in which, because you're never going to be called to make a decision, there's a responsibility that you're never going to feel. There's a responsibility that you're never going to interact with. There is a weight on your shoulder about the entire organization that you don't have, because your job is to stamp this thing, punch this thing, press this button. And that's your role in that hierarchy versus, you know, like how Athena was explaining. Again, it's very low cost to entry as far as how we bring you into this. You can just be a person who is keeping track of our meeting times, right? That is leadership, because you will have to say, hey, person, you're going too long, we have 5 minutes. That is leadership. And if that's all that you can do for the first 3 months, 3 weeks, 2 days, whatever, you gain that skill here at the People's Party. What you do with that skill, that now you have the internal authority, the internal integrity, the internal whatever, to listen to somebody speak in a meeting and say, hey, we have an agenda. We're here. We've all agreed to do X, Y, Z. I understand that, you know, you have passions, you have ideas, but we need to move on. It is that simple. So again, people are doing this stuff all the time. It's more about being methodical about it. That's the organization part of this. That is all about just being aware that, yeah, all these other, they got nothing special. We just need to do it.
I want to get Curtis involved in this, you know, just because we do have some time constraints, and I want to make sure that, I know the last time we talked in episode 25, OC made a comment that Curtis knew a lot about this particular topic that I'm about to bring up in the debt jubilee. When I've heard of debt jubilee before, I've heard it the first time from Michael Hudson, the economist, Michael Hudson. Or are we talking about a debt jubilee on the local level? Because on your site, I saw something about a debt jubilee under one of the bullet points, I think, under the anarchist library and all this other stuff that y'all do. And I saw debt jubilee there. What is that talking about, Curtis? And how does the People Party of Texas, what's the involvement with the People's Party in Texas and the idea of a debt jubilee?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as far as I think it's, to us, the idea is pretty simple. We cancel all debt. Debt is a tool of political violence against a whole class of people. That's what it's used for. And we don't believe that that kind of political violence should be used. So we consider it one of our core issues that we try to promote, you know, when we go to events and things like that. The idea of debt liberation, of a debt jubilee, is one of the, we want to put that in the public mind just to make people believe that it's possible. You know, you mentioned people, like, I think most people just, their brains don't, like, what are you talking about? How there's a big moral component put to debt. You know, I think our society and culture teaches people that to pay one's debts is some kind of moral virtue. You know, it's the people in power that tell them that, so stop believing it. That's one of our core messages. It's not. The idea, the ability to pay one's debts is not not paying one's debts is not a moral failing. That's society's failing you. And we want people to start to realize that. So yeah, as far as, how can we, there's a lot of ways we can go about achieving a debt jubilee. It could be something that, a state pushes down through policy. That's great. But I think even more importantly, empowering society as a whole to just decide maybe we can all just stop paying our debts. Because, why should we? Give me one good reason why we should. Especially since our whole lives are structured around it. In America, that's from the moment we're born, our lives are structured around debt. And it's really like sick and poisonous when you think about it. And people are so conditioned to accept that it's normal, or that it's moral, right, to do that. So I think with us pushing that idea, we're trying to just really open up people's imaginations to the idea that a different world is possible. Debt isn't like a universal concept. There's plenty of places in society you can look through history. When you look at the history of other nations have realized this in the past, like debt jubilee, that's a word that's known. It's been done historically. It was a common practice in the feudal world as a way to kind of reset things during regime change, because they knew that, with these debts hovering over people, it generally makes people uneasy, and it is very destabilizing to society. So yeah, I think our goal, if we could open up people's minds to the point where they realize that, hey, this is an idea that I can start to think about seriously, and that it is not a moral failing if you can't pay your debts. It's not your fault. It's society. It's the fact that you're in debt in the first place is the problem, not that you have some kind of moral failing because you can't meet that incredibly ridiculous standard.
And if you want to make this argument to, let's say, conservatives, right? There's biblical.
It's 25-25.
There you go. Yeah, I was about to say, there's both Old and New Testament. There's biblical basis for debt jubilee and forgiving of debts and things like that. So if this matters, it's a moral good, or whatever. If that,
Christian.
No matter what way you come at this, it's happened in the real world, and it works. And there's a reason why.
We've heard you're interested, folks. We'll point you out to one book.
Yeah, there's a reason why interest in large parts of our history was illegal. There's a reason for that. So,
interest is condemned universally in just about every religion in the world, yet somehow in the capitalist West, we've flipped that and not only made it okay, but made it the core principle behind which our economy is driven. And it's awful.
Well, we changed it from usury, which sounds terrible, to interest. And that is one of the ways that we have really managed to sell a lot of myths that used to be considered wrong or unpopular. We just changed the word. And so we like to say Orwellian as a term now because we're all modern and, whatever. But Orwellian stuff has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. That's how we control each other. We just tell you a story, or someone will tell you a story, and you will believe that or not believe that, but you will act upon it, right? So once upon a time, we used to say, if I give you this and you have to give me more than that, that's usury, and it, has a basis in me using you. And it's very, very simple for people to understand that concept, right? But once you get into interest rates and market this and blah, blah, blah. So the whole language is designed to hide what it is that's happening. And yeah, that is like that type of psychological weapon that as long as you keep people kind of confused. Like my favorite example to give about how people think of debt and how I don't understand how people think of debt is the student loan issue, right? So right now, if you pin down someone who's just gun-ho against debt forgiveness, at the end of the day, what they'll say is that you promise to do this. Great. And that they don't want to use taxpayer money or whatever it is that they think is going to happen to resolve it. And what I like to point out is like the framing of that, because for the last 3 years, no one has been paying their student loans. For the last 3 years, money out of no one's pocket has come out for the purposes of giving certain corporations, who are the people who manage these loans, their loans or their money. No one has, the world hasn't fallen, the sky is still blue, everything is exactly the same. So it looks like student loan forgiveness specifically will not affect the overall population in any way, shape, or form from the 3 years that we have been living so far. So why on God's green earth, unless you have a stake in the money that's not coming in right now, why would you want to start that spigot again? And I just don't understand. But that's because I don't have a stake. If I had $100,000 of my rent is dependent on the fact that these, everybody else is paying this student loan, this arbitrage around the neck, then yeah, I'd be pretty gung-ho on starting them right now. Like, oh yeah, we'll work on it. We'll work on whatever it is, blah, 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 but go ahead and pay them right now. Oh yeah, we got you. Oh, you want, yeah, we're gonna put on a bill for next year for blah, 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 but go ahead and make your payment. Go ahead and make your payment. Nah, I don't understand that mentality. And that's because I don't have a stake in it. So that's how I view debt as a whole. It's just some promises apparently are made in gold, and those are the only ones that transfer money from the poor to the rich, because Biden made a bunch of promises. Politicians make a bunch of promises all the time, but no one expects them to keep those promises. But when it comes to debt, for some reason, somebody was on their deathbed. They got told, if you give me $100, I'll sew up that wound. And they said, yeah, I'll give you $100. It turns out later on, they don't have $100. So now we're saying, well, guess what, guy? You made a solemn oath. What? You made a solemn oath. Biden, you made, every politician has made solemn oaths. So what is an oath? What is a promise? Yeah, these are all the things that people have in their brains that they don't necessarily think about twice, that we'd like them to just, think about these things for a little bit longer.
I thought of when Curtis was explaining initially about this debt jubilee, I was thinking of, well, if everyone, let's just take student loan debt, for instance. What if we all decided, and I don't know if I get in trouble for saying it's not, I don't plan on paying it back, but what if everyone took that approach? Would that basically be kind of like a general strike mentality? That's the same kind of mindset, right? If enough people are on board to say, what can they actually do about it? They're going to have to start conceding to us at that point, right? And listening to what we have to say about it. There's more of us than them, right? They can't possibly go after every person that's indebted to these public institutions. A lot of them are, but I think about this all the time. Just being so much in debt myself, $155,000 in university debt.
Yeah.
Even though I felt that I've given a public service, though I have a PhD, I've taught for over 15 years. How's that not a service back to the community? I don't get any credit for that at all.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, like even, to keep understood. So I went to an art school. I went to school with a bunch of people who studied graphic design, who studied all kind of stuff. That, by the way, is somehow deemed, like these are the, not good industries or good jobs that people are wasting money going into. That's, another excuse that people say. All of my friends who graduated graphic design, they work for corporate. They're doing the graphic design for industries. These very industries that we talk about how we care so much. These very industries that when, shit go down, those are the industries that are going down and everybody's freaking out. Right? When the stock market crashed, is because all these industries are going down and everybody's freaking out. Yeah, the artists that I went to school with, that everybody's like, well, you wasted your time studying graphic design. Everybody needs graphic design though. And graphic design is everywhere. So what is the public service that we're looking for when people are getting an education? And it goes back to debt. It goes back to the concept of debt being about a responsibility, of debt being about a moral, like a moral cudgel that we use to coerce people into doing stuff. So yeah, that's where all of that comes from. And if we could get rid of like that aspect of coerciveness of our society, I think the horizontal structure that we are talking about earlier would make a lot more sense to a lot more individuals.
I really like how you brought in the idea of the general strike, because I do believe that a debt jubilee and a general strike really do go hand in hand. And America is very far off from either of those. I think we are not organized as a class enough to be able to do that. So that's the goal. That's one of the things we want to promote. The idea is that these things can be possible if more and more people just want to open their minds to the possibility of it.
Absolutely. I want to segue a little bit into you all have a lot of activity going on like recently. And as far as what I know, you've had some events. You mentioned the harm reduction emphasis. You all have a marijuana march coming up next weekend in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Can you tell the audience about some of the upcoming events? You have the marijuana march coming up, and then you have the condom crawl, which is an annual event. Those two events in particular, just for the audience to understand.
The Texas Marijuana March is in Fort Worth, and it's the largest free speech event, marijuana like cloud definitely in Texas, but I can't remember if they claim the United States or the world, but it's awesome. We're gonna be there. As far as harm reduction, there's another organization that we work with that specifically does harm reduction. They're DREAM, DFW harm reduction, education, and they're amazing, and they're also going to be there. And I think basically there's like 76 vendors this year. It's going to be a pretty big event, and we'll just march to the city hall and demand legalization. We hope we have someone maybe working on a sign, so we'll have that. And so basically we'll just hand out some marijuana stickers and condoms and a bunch of like free store hygiene supplies, school supplies. But yeah, and then I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about the marijuana march.
Oh, that group that you mentioned, Athena, what's the name of that group again?
That's what I was gonna say. It's DREAM, but it's spelled DHREAM. So if you just type DREAM.
Yeah. And Curtis is an officer in the organization. So he definitely has the 411 on DREAM. I mean, we work together a lot, but yeah.
They're great. They do really good work.
Is this a national group?
No, we're just local to Texas. We are linked with other harm reduction groups, Kiko, as well as some national harm reduction coalitions. So yeah, definitely check us out on Instagram. If you don't know what harm reduction is, or you want to learn more about it, check us out. I'll be happy to help to teach anyone. It's a new idea to me. It's something I've just recently gotten involved in, and I do think it's very important. The idea is that our healthcare system, as we all know, is utterly incapable of taking care of the people of this country. A lot of people fall through the cracks. And that includes the houseless population. It includes people who suffer from addiction. It includes sex workers. And we want to take care of those people that fall through the cracks because our system cannot.
Yes, you have to give me the direct link so I can put that in the episode description. I would love to do that so my audience can get that information. So you mentioned the legalization of marijuana aspect, Athena, and is there going to be any other emphasis besides that? I know this sounds pretty obvious, like a marijuana march, but is this the first year for this event?
And for several years, I think since 2018, I think was when it first started. And it's several of the like DFW Normal, Texas Normal, and like Austin Normal, and then the Texas Cannabis Coalition, and you know, several other organizations. And I'll put those in the chat too, just because yeah, it's a really cool event, and there's, you know, basically a bunch of people that support marijuana legalization and decriminalization. So it's not just legalization. And there is a difference. I can kind of tell you, but it's complicated. And as an organization, we are, and as others are kind of wrestling with what the right position to have is. But Curtis, do you want to say? Sorry.
When you all are there, I'm in Tennessee. I know that the attitudes here have changed significantly, just in my lifetime. And I've tried to educate friends about it, you know, that I interact with, you know, whoever I can, just to start with just destigmatizing drugs in general. To kind of, we got to move this some kind of a way to where I don't even know why marijuana is part of this broader discussion. You know, when marijuana is really medicinal, honestly. I mean, you can smoke it recreational, but it's very much medicinal. I mean, it really saved my PhD. I would tell people I wrote more than ever when I was under the influence of marijuana than I did the previous 3 years when I was working on my dissertation. And you can't tell me that that's not scientifically induced. I mean, it is. That's completely a scientific example there. And not to mention the psychological freedom that you have. You could be more proactive with the people that you're around. I mean, that stuff all plays into the significant benefits of this plant. Is there going to be any sort of initiative? Are you pushing this to lawmakers possibly with the marijuana march, or is this just something that's more or less people in the streets bring awareness to it, or is there actually like steps going forward, or are there people on board in local Texas politics that are trying to push stuff within the political system there?
There are a couple of decriminalization efforts going on in Lubbock and College Station. And I think it's Ground Game Texas is the one that is like funding it, which is another like 501c4. And so they're doing, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to be there because this is like a Texas-wide march, even though it is in Fort Worth, which is a conservative city, but it's been in that city for several years. So they, you know, and a lot of conservatives, I mean, everybody smokes marijuana. Like it is a human thing, you know, like it has been a human thing forever. So this taboo is only like, you know, 60 years old, you know, and it's just racism. I mean, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, the thing's been going on and it's cool that it's in a conservative city. Probably my friends.
Yeah, Texas has such a backwards policy compared to a lot of other states. And it has to do with the power of law enforcement. I mean, it's just put it simply, it's a reason to arrest people, and they like that. Like that's why. Hey, I need to arrest progressive people. Well, I guarantee you, go to a leftist thing and somebody's got weed on them. It's an easy way to arrest somebody. I want to arrest people of color. Somebody's got weed on them. It's an easy way to put somebody in jail. So that, to me, that's what it's about. And yeah, it's a lot of people, you know, the conservatives in the state don't want to give that up. They love that. They love the idea that they can just arrest anyone they want. And Texas has one of the highest prison populations in the country. And a lot of it is drug related.
I'm glad that you guys are like taking like the conversation to this side, because honestly, like as far as that, the concept or the battle for marijuana legalization or all, you know, drug legalization essentially,
Yeah,
right?
all drugs. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't know, maybe this is stubborn to me, maybe this is childish, but I go to what are the facts? The facts that we all know, by the way. The facts are that we know that this was started by a president who we all know was corrupt by his own words. By his own words, we know that he wanted to do this to jail. I think his words were Mexicans, hippies, and Black people, by his words. So I immediately go like, no, I'm not. Then I'm not accepting the frame, period. And no, let's go back to what it used to be. And then to give you a little bit of like how I personally a lot of times get radicalized. So I have that thought in my brain already. And then we get, you know, our first Black president. And I could say something like, oh, okay, well, now we're going to get something on this because there, but by the grace of God go I, right?
Yeah.
Except that the first Black president doesn't do shit diddly on it, right? And I go, whoa, that's weird. And then on his exit, I don't know if anybody remembers it, but the first Black president essentially had an interview or a conversation on stage with somebody where I essentially saw him say that, yeah, he could have done that because it's essentially just a schedulization issue, right? But from what I understood, he said white people would have been mad. That's what the answer was.
Yeah.
And again, just to show you about like how I get radicalized, because then I said, whoa. Then I even like it destroyed the concept of white folks. I was like, who white folks? Oh, white folks I know also are down. So who white folks are you referencing right now? History for this. And if we can all grow a pot of plants that are gonna make our lives better, then no, that's not allowed. That is not allowed. We're making money off of this in a certain way. Even if you look at how legalization is going on most states, what they're doing is, that's why like I pay attention to every CBD store that opens up right now, because basically everybody who is getting in on these CBD stores is putting in now. And the people in our communities can't put it now. They don't have the money, they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have a way to get into this now so that the powers that be don't take this cash influx that's going to, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. It's just that the powers that be, this is what they do. They organize. This is what they do. They organize for their own interest. This is going to be an industry. They are getting it ready right now.
I think I was looking at it the other day, maybe I was with you, and we were looking at like how much in Texas would it cost to like get into that industry. And I think like just the licensing and like the certification was like $500,000.
That's
Yeah.
And
crazy.
that's not even like the storefront and all the
growing
startup
and
costs and the
yeah.
materials and all that shit. Just like permission from the state was $500,000 up front, you
And
know?
that is also what I tell people, what I explain to people what capitalism is. Capitalism is whoever has the capital makes the ism. And they and
I like that.
they organize everything to make sure that the mass of us don't have the capital.
And the funny part is the people who are preventing legalization today are going to be the people who own these businesses tomorrow. In 10 years, all of these lawmakers right now who are saying, no, we can't because of this and that, whatever, they're going to be the ones in 10 years on whatever, the local news or CBS with their pot farm. And it's like, oh, you know, it helped my kid, you know, whatever bullshit they have to say. I had a change of heart.
John
Like,
Boehner.
you knew, like John Boehner, exactly. That's what I was alluding to.
John Boehner.
Boehner stopped it for years.
Say that motherfucker's name.
Yeah, for real. John Boehner stopped it for years. Now go look him up. He's like Randy Marsh on South Park. Like he has, you know, he has all the weed. He's proponent of it. He's
like the biggest lobbyist right now for the weed industry.
Yeah.
Corporate.
Now that he got in on the ground floor, yeah. It's anything in our society where it's like, why do we do it like this? Nobody likes this. This is weird. It's like because someone's making a shit ton of money. You know, like drugs, making drugs illegal. If everyone could grow their own weed or their own mushrooms or whatever the fuck and give it out to their friends or whatever, free, like a lot less people, and it was freely available. Because you can't, you know, you can't make a antidepressant in your home. You can't do that chemical synthesis and like precedential pill and all that, you know, the all that goes into like making pharmaceutical drugs. Anyone can grow weed. Anyone can, you know, grow mushrooms. Anyone can make beer or wine at their, you know, it's like anyone can make whatever. Anyone can grow coca leaves or whatever, you know, chew on them, whatever you want to do. But so pharmaceutical companies will make a lot less money. The private prison, the prison industrial complex makes a lot less money. Those police precincts, those cities make a lot less money. Everyone makes a lot less money except the people. People get so yeah, that's hell, like the American government gets to sell drugs, you know, they get to sell drugs anyway.
They get to sell them and they get to experiment on them.
Right.
But if we experiment on them, I go to jail.
There's it's not by accident. It's not because these people actually believe that these drugs should be illegal. They're all doing the drugs. It's because there are people making money and they've bought the politicians to make sure that this shit stays illegal. And it's horrific. It's not just like, oh, you can't get high. It's like there are thousands of people in prison right now for something that's legal, you know, in these individual states. You go to Colorado, you go to whatever states, just Arizona, it's legal, and yet there's still thousands of people in prison. Like, it's not just like you know, these are just hippies who want to get high on fucking mushrooms or weed or whatever. And if they do, who gives a fuck? Like, it's just, it's personal bodily autonomy. Like, if anyone hurts someone on anything, they go to prison because they hurt someone. Why is it illegal to like to get drunk or to whatever, or to alter your perception, to take some mushrooms in your own home or whatever? And even now that anyway, I'm not gonna get it. I'll stop talking because this is something I'm very passionate about. It's reprehensible on in many different ways of just not being able to have your own autonomy, and like the horrific things that are being done to people in the name of a drug war that doesn't make sense. There are people languishing in prison. There are people Anyway.
You know, this goes back even to our conversation about the border. People like to, you know, they're conservative. Invading Mexico. Over
Ridiculous one.
like the cartels. If you were honest about this, okay, let's say all of the conservative ideas are true and Mexico is just ran by, you know, drug dealing cartels. Let's think about a cartel as a company. What would happen if all of a sudden, by the way, most like Mexican cartels, whatever, they're still making a bunch of money, mainly off of weed. Like something like either just a little bit over or under 50% of what they make is based on weed. If you take any industry and you, let's say iPhones, if you say, hey, guess what? You can now, we're gonna make it free and available for everyone to have an iPhone because you can just grow one in your backyard. What would happen to Apple? What would happen to Apple? It would be destroyed because there goes some gigantic percentage, whether I have the numbers right now or not, there goes some gigantic percentage of your revenue. So when I hear people saying that we're gonna go to Mexico and we're gonna kill a bunch of folks, which is what you're gonna do, over a drug war that hasn't been working, and then me, a layman's, a nobody, an idiot, a fool, can say, well, okay, well, what would happen if you just take down their bottom, their merchandise, just take it out from under them? But no, you don't want to do that. You want to sell more guns to, you know, you want to get this company to sell you more guns. So there goes that company making money on whatever deal you have with them. Then you want to send military people over there to kill a bunch of regular human beings because, by the way, I know plenty of drug dealers. They're still regular human beings. That's my favorite part about them, actually. So they also have kids, wives, nephews, daughters. You know what I mean? All of this. Okay. All of that to do what? To stop a thing that, once again, we all know a certain president who is not a crook started this because he wanted Mexicans, hippies, and Black folks not to vote. I think there are way easier ways that you can get people not to vote than to continue this cycle of bullshit.
But the reason why this conversation is so important, it actually made me think of something. You know, the rhetoric, they love to attack the voters, first of all. Well, this bullshit electoral system, they always like to attack the voters, especially when the voters start to become too independent, when they start to take their own like lives into consideration and not the bureaucrats that are trying to ruin their lives. And I'm convinced that there's no such thing as a single issue. I don't believe you can be a single issue voter. This conversation is making me realize that more and more. And so if this conversation doesn't do anything else, I hope it makes people consider that every issue you think about, if it's your priority, is never just one thing that's attached to that issue. It relates to everything else. It relates to just this issue with marijuana is not a one issue situation. This is multiple issues covered. We talked about 5 different things. You brought up the border with the cartels, the medicinal industry, the pharmaceutical industry, taxation, questions around that, anything, whether you're a libertarian or whatever, it is going to make you, if you're thinking about it deeply, it's not just one single issue that it affects. And so I want people to get that out.
The lumber industry. I mean, you can get into everything. The paper industry, yeah. We could just grow hemp and make paper out of that. Why are we cutting down all these trees? Like, what do we, you know, every industry, like, yeah. It's everything is connected. War is connected to drugs, is connected to healthcare, drugs is connected to, you know, the prison industrial complex is connected to healthcare, yeah, is connected to housing or a permanent underclass. You know, when we talk about, anyway, we can talk about that, felonies and like what that does to someone, to have, even if it's just a drug felony, even if it's just a nonviolent drug felony, you have that felony, your life is over. You can't vote, you can't live in certain places, you can't protect yourself, you can't do a lot of things.
Job, good luck getting a job.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, but I served my time. You know, I paid off my debt. Why do I always have this scarlet letter? You know, and that's another conversation, but everything is definitely connected. Yeah, I think personally war is at near the top of that pyramid, and that's why it's probably like my biggest issue. But it's a web. It definitely is a web. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you could, if you talk about like, we wouldn't have to cut down so many trees if hemp was legal for all these years, then that moves into the climate issue, and moves into the environmental issue. It's all connected. Yeah.
So like, to bring it back to how we kind of operate as far as, Texas People Party, like what OC is saying is very much how I view our core, because we talk about this all the time. There are certain core issues that, and there are not many of them. It's just that they are so interconnected with each other that if you do think that you are a single issue voter, you're just simply not thinking hard enough or not giving it enough time. So we talk about certain aspects of society. This goes back to the, it takes a village principle, where if you simply kind of take care of those, right? Then the pipes will run smoothly. Everything else will just start flowing. Everything else will just run smoothly. And those honestly are just the hardcore issues. You got healthcare. You got things like, maybe not sexy stuff, like, just public transportation, stuff like that. You got education, right? And these are all things that we are supposed to be kind of deciding on as a collective anyways. And if we're just bringing it back to local communities, that's where our success, right, comes in. That's where our kind of training to change people's minds is going. That's where we're actively taking steps to like change our society, really from the bottom up. I usually tell, in our meetings, I say that what we want to do is be able to build a whole different society right under the current society's nose, so that, because yeah, once you've been doing something for a couple of years, the other ones won't have legitimacy, and it'll just be just push them and they'll blow away.
Athena, do you want to say something? Because I was looking at your facial expressions when we were in this conversation. Do you want to add something to this?
I think it was having to do, and I thought of it earlier too, but I was like, I don't know. It was just with the intersectionality of the border crisis with our failed social welfare system. And it's like, we already can't take care of the people that are here. And it's like the people that when our state sends it to other cities and stuff, they are becoming aware, and they're like, this is unsustainable. It's like, yes, this is what these border states deal with all the time. And it's not just the migrants, it's literally people that we are not taking care of, that we are pushing into this position, either by war or at home by, sending the jobs abroad.
Or just like yeah, exactly, like the economic devastation that has occurred in this country, perpetrated by our own lawmakers or whatever. And it's like, again, why are there so many homeless people in this country? Like, what happened? Like, why are people like looking around and being like, I don't know, like, it's like,
I mean, they're getting mad. Like, these people are getting mad. They're like, we can't put them off the streets. Where do you expect people to go that have no home? Yeah. And they can't bring their dog to a shelter. They can't bring, or they have a drug problem, so they can't be there, or they have a felony, so they're not allowed in. Like, what do you expect? Like, and yeah. So I think that just kind of shows how bad things already were. Just like with the pandemic, it exacerbated everything. and it shows, oh, they could give us healthcare. And it was the same thing. They dangled it. They're like, oh, here's a little bit. Here's some shots. Here's some tests. We could do it. But no, okay, the pandemic's, it's over. You know, like, I don't know. That is just part of the problem.
Those people have their blinders on, though, Athena, because it's just like you said. I was on a pod like right when the pandemic was starting, and the biggest argument for someone not supporting any of this system at all is precisely that. If in that situation, healthcare was never going to be implemented to us, then if they know that they can still get your support, then it's like, what's the point then? You know, it's just all these people rushing to kiss their favorite politician's ass or whatever they want to do and phone bank for these people. I'm saying to myself, if that time was not an ideal time, then when is going to be an ideal time? Like, what excuse are you going to keep making? And that's all I see is just people making an excuse for these people. And let's just focus on ourselves and focus on the people around you, because they clearly have no interest in helping us out. The only thing they use us for is for these votes. It seems like, and even then, even if we support the person that we want to support, and that person is of the people, like, this system isn't set up for those people to last. You know, it's set up for those people to basically be extorted or like threatened. It's almost like you have a choice to make. Like, you're either with us or we're going to take you out ourselves from within. And to me, that's what it seems like the system is. You know, I guess it's always been like that. And then when you say stuff like the deep state, people look at you like you're crazy, like you got 10 heads on your shoulders. But I'm like, then what is it? You tell me that it doesn't exist, then what is it? If you have people like RFK, who is supposed to be a smart person, just up here in Israel, like, I'm kissing your ass left and right. But all these people for RFK, I'm saying to myself, just think about that. Why are you giving him cover? Like, he's just a terrible person on this issue. He is. He's a terrible person on the issue. So there's nothing that you can do to change people's minds. Like, oh, but he's going to do this right. He's going to protect the environment right. He's going to do this right. But he's so fucking bad on an issue that's so inherent to human rights. To me, that just damages the credibility across the board. And I just, I don't know why people are just afraid to connect the dots. Maybe it's because it hits too close to their affiliation. I don't know what it is. But we really got to start stepping back and reconsidering our positions. If it's going against your principles, then it's probably not the right decision in the first place.
Oh, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry.
You're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah.
I said that's what completely happened with the Democratic Party. They are now pro-war and pro-censorship, and like they have completely, you know, changed their, like, there was no loyalty to their principles. They were loyal to the D or the R, and I don't know. It's incredibly appalling to see, like, people that have advanced interests in the opposite of the parties being like, no, I have to vote this way. Like, people that know that the duopoly is bad, and they're just like, this election is the most important election of our lifetime. Oh my, I know. Hey, I keep telling people, I'm like, they say that every time. Just so you know, spoiler alert.
It's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
So I made this point before that, I don't know, I think like there's a certain percentage of the population, I believe this is like a scientific fact, it's just a certain percent of the population is not going to be scared by something that they've already experienced. So I think right now we are in a very good time for change in the world. Now, whether that change is going to be good or bad, that's a whole different story. But this is why I brought up originally that, you know, the last time we did something this drastic, we ended up not having slavery anymore. So maybe we should take our chances.
Yes.
Like, trust ourselves. You know what I mean? Trust ourselves. The South could have won, by the way. Black folks, let's make that scary. The South could have won.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, to give you an example where it didn't happen in my dream of dreams, what's my boy name? The greatest white man who ever lived. What's his
Larry
name?
Bird?
No, get out of here.
He said Larry.
Virginia was trying to get black folks to revolt. I think he was a preacher.
Oh, yeah. John Brown.
John Brown?
Brown, there you go. Yeah, John Brown tried it, didn't work out. Then we tried it again. The same plan, by the way, is essentially the same plan, and it did work. So that's what I mean. Like, something drastic sometimes is the right way to go. And again, right now, that sentiment that you kind of gave of, I've heard this where I've talked to my friends that they're just so shocked that there was a global pandemic. And let's think about 2020 for just a little bit, guys, because I am fascinated with what humanity went through. It was scary times. It was scary times. But here's what happened to, here's what happened to me and a bunch of other millions, hopefully billions of people. In 2020, I had someone at the hospital whom I could barely afford to keep at the hospital, not because of COVID. And I couldn't see her. I couldn't do a lot of things that were restricted because of COVID. And I felt terrible because of that. And then I also had to find ways to pay for this care because of that. Meanwhile, for a brand new disease that was also very scary, somehow, some way, everyone agreed that, you know what? We got you. We got you on this one. And that's weird. That's the least controversial thing you can say. And that is weird that we did that. And people need to think on that. Furthermore, we said, hey, because by the way, everyone, even the people making money, were affected by this one disease. That's really what it is. So y'all need to get the fuck back to work. So we're going to give you vaccines. You can come in, check it out. Only this one thing, because it affects productivity too much. If you on your own got colon cancer, go fuck yourself. If you on your own got heart problems, go fuck yourself. If you on your own got cholesterol issues, go yourself. Then, after that psychological, head snap, fast forward to now, no, COVID doesn't matter. Now, not enough people are dying as far as the eyes of power see. Not enough of you are dying for this to be an issue that we are concerned with. These are three head snaps that, if we think about it for just a little bit, our society has given us in the last 3 years. Right? And people have to reckon with that. And how are we going to reckon with that? That's what excites me. That's what I'm down for. That's what I'm here for. And that's what I'm hoping other people will think about. Because we don't have to do this. And we already had, why? Okay. COVID, you need a shot. For heart disease, you need a bunch of other stuff. We could also give that away.
We do it for dialysis. I think dialysis is like one. For some reason, it was actually Nixon and the Congress. It was like, I don't know why. I don't know the context behind it, but there were like
that they didn't want to have to pay for dialysis.
Some
They're
senators,
like, okay, everybody gets it.
But they were like, everyone gets dialysis. I mean, you have to be in like end stage renal failure, but like they could do that for anything or everything, and they choose not to. This is all choices. These are all like People are making these choices. This
It's not just
this
that
isn't
they
all just by
choose.
accident.
It's not just that they choose not to. So the healthcare industry, let's put some real stuff on the table. The healthcare industry employs, I don't know, 2 million to 5 million people. I don't know the numbers, right? Let's stick to those that are imaginary, let's say. Y'all heard on the news, every time they gain 250,000 jobs, they blast that. Oh, if they have to contend with all of a sudden 2 million people, however many amount of million people, all of a sudden don't have a job. And that's what you hear about, you know, the Democrats get a lot of like, you know, shit about training programs, that they're always coming up with these training programs because they're always displacing folks from one industry into another. They do that honestly with vulnerable people. That's why they do it, and they generally don't actually come through on the training or the post displacement side of these things. So that's why people don't have faith in the, you know, Democratic Party and their approach. But honestly, this is part of the mutual aid. This is part of the horizontal organization that we have, which is first to teach people how to take care of each other. I think America needs to literally learn, you know, during the pandemic, also all these things were happening where like depression era stuff was coming back. Like I got a lot of stuff on my YouTube feed where it was like, you know, people taking care of each other or making things from scratch. Kind of, you know, we had a lot of shortages and stuff. So it was like you had to, you know, invent new ways to do things. And it showed me that at one point in time, America was desperate enough to take care of itself. Like the people themselves were doing stuff in this mutual aid aspect, but it was hard times. It was, you know, depression time. So there is something about being up against the wall that brings people together. And you see this, you know, during any hurricane, during any tornado, during any, people go back to, you know, those it takes a village principle. And I think that right now we are dealing with that globally. It's not a disaster like a hurricane where, you know, we can see the destruction, but I think psychologically the pandemic was the same thing. And I think the exciting thing about it is that, again, because people naturally go back to helping each other, I think that's why this is such an interesting time for the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. What's
I
that?
was just gonna add, because that reminded me of the UAW striking workers right now. And so they're striking like 20 minutes from where we live. So like we've gone and we've made some care packages and we're gonna go back and we've supplied a canopy and we're trying to, you know, just show solidarity. And the cool thing to me is the potential, even though it's a small thing, if they get this 32-hour work week, it's a new era, you know, like if that's what happened before, that's how we got a 40-hour work week, was a strike. And so all this animosity that the news and the media is like, oh, these workers, they're gonna cause you to not be able to get your part and all that. Like it's like, yeah, they're gonna give you a 32-hour work week. You should be thanking these people that are willing to not work to strike and get less pay. Like it is rough to be striking, even though that's a whole thing you can get into about tactics or whatever, but it is rough. And it shouldn't be. With the general strike, the whole point is, like we've been saying, to develop this infrastructure to be able to survive so that we can do a general strike, because there's no point in just everyone's going to be suffering. We shouldn't be living to suffer. It has to be sustainable. And that also means that us poors can have leisure and pleasure, you know. I'm sorry, I hate the elites right now.
That actually, like, to go back into the intersectionality of everything, because even at my job, I tell people all the time, like, hey, y'all, there's a you know, auto worker strike, there's this strike, because if 4-day work week becomes a thing, you got to think about, that's a raise also. That's a raise. And that's a raise larger than your employer has ever willingly proposed.
Mm-hmm.
That's a raise. That's a huge raise. That's
Yeah.
what we're fighting about right now.
Absolutely. I wanted to get into one more significant event, and I want to discuss the Anarchist Library before we go today, because we're almost 2 hours in, but this has been I didn't think it would go that far, but once we got to talking, after that hour mark, I was like, oh, we're going to be here for a while today. But this has been so great. I'm having y'all on this episode 69. But I want to ask about the Come and Crawl event. This is an annual event too. Can you all go into detail about what is that about for my audience?
So we have been doing it since like when we were it was the first event that we did after the breaking with our previous organization, and we were like just some people, and I was like, hey, do you guys want to come with me and hand out condoms? I live up the street from the neighborhood in Dallas, and so it's walking distance, so we just stage here. And then even did it during COVID, and so we've been doing it for a few years, and this year there's other organizations that are going to join us and hand out Narcan and Plan B, and it's going to be pretty cool. It's just it's like a combination harm reduction mutual aid, because we're doing trick or treat, we're all dressing up, but it is to get with the community and to just pass out stuff so that people have a good time safely, and also a celebration because we think that it's the meaning of community. Part of it is like, as corny as it sounds, is being friends with these people that you work with, because you have to work with them a lot and you have to respect them even with when you have major differences. And this is something nice that we can still, like, whatever, it's a nerdy thing that you like have fun doing these things, but still it's a fun thing that we can do, but it's also social. And then we get to collab with DHREAM and I'll put the website for the North Texas Rural Resistance, who's going to be passing out Plan B.
You want to say
Yeah,
she's been doing it since she
yeah.
started it. She hasn't been doing it continuously, but she started doing it way back in college.
Oh yeah,
where you would go to the, which is also, it's, you could call it an excuse just to go to the bar and still do something nice, but
it's fun to hand out, like, to go buy 100 condoms and hand them out to complete strangers. It's fun. And then we'll, like, back in college we would put, like, safe sex facts or like reproductive facts on them, and like, this is how many sperm cells are in a whatever 1 ounce of semen or whatever. And it was just like funny facts, and
they go really quick also.
They go incredibly quick,
which is good,
which is wonderful, because
you'd be surprised how
it's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's a very conservative school that we went to, and so it was, you would think, okay, these people, there were definitely some people that are like, I'm not a whore, and then they'd walk back around and be like, thank you, and it's like, okay, that's fine. I understand, but it was cool, and it's been a cool thing. It's just like a different kind of crawl. You get a group of people and you get a box of condoms and just pass them out, and you can even, like, some of them would put the directions to check if they've been punctured. Make sure to check your expiration date. If you're between the ages of 21 and 30, there's a grant that you can apply for every semester to get 500 free condoms from Trojan. So I'll put that link in the thing just so you have it too.
Now, is this throughout the Dallas area? Like, where are you all going to be having this event? Is this in a neighborhood, as you said? Or is this going to be like downtown, like Dallas, Fort Worth area? Like, where is this going to be?
No, it's in the historical, like, Oaklawn gay LGBTQ neighborhood in Dallas, which is where, like, Pride is, or was, until they tried to move it to the state, or
Fair Park
or whatever. So yeah, it's just like it's a nice collection of, it's a great little neighborhood, nice collection of bars and like shops and places to eat. I would honestly, anyone who's in Dallas, I would say go visit the Oakland neighborhood. Like there's kind of everything there, and it's great. It's everything looks really cool. It's a great place.
And we're doing it that day because they have the famous
right.
like block party, and so they have the entire street blocked off, and they have a red carpet for people to do a costume promenade. And so like random people, anybody, if you wanted to, you could go in your costume and strut and show the entire of Cedar Springs. And so we couldn't even like, so you have to go through a gate because they have the whole thing closed off, so no cars can go there. Hello.
She would try to crash the interview towards the end.
Great crash.
Okay, I'll be down in a second, okay?
We'll be quick.
Yeah.
But
No.
I forgot what I was saying. But the at the neighborhood, so it is so quick that we can't even get in to the thing by the time like we're going through the line and we're done with all of the condoms, and it's like a couple hundred condoms gone within, I don't know, it was less than 15 minutes. Yeah, so it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that those that is a heavy emphasis on the events part of your webpage on the People's Party of Texas. I guess my other question had to do with this library that you have. It's called the Anarchist Library. What exactly is that for the audience? I think my audience will have a lot of interest in this particular resource.
It's like a mobile library. We have a pop-up free store and pop-up library once a month. Right now we're doing it in Fort Worth because there's already a group that does it in Denton, and so we're trying to just expand. And there's another group that does it in like a rural area of North Texas, so we're just trying to get into Fort Worth. And basically we have a set of books right now, and we are open to donations of like radical or banned books or just hard to find educational books, literature that might be usually gatekept or gate kept. And so we just are checking it out. It goes along with our library of things, which is like a tool library. So that is what we're just getting started. That we have mostly like organizer stuff that we're lending out, like clipboards, tables, chairs, canopy, that kind of thing. But we're just getting started with the library of things. And as far as the Anarchist Library, it's just like pop up and mobile at this point.
Now, can you get like whole readings, or is this just like, is this PDF stuff, or what exactly is that? Is it free access to all of this stuff in the library?
Yes, free access to everything in the library. It is a lot of like paperbacks. There's, you know, a couple of as many PDFs as we can like find copies of. We have the links to on our website, or we have a document that we want to publish to our website. And we do a book club where we read, basically we either randomize or somebody will propose, you know, this event happened or it's this month, we want to read a book about this. And so we'll go from this list. And like our library is not comprehensive of every book that we have read. Physically, a lot of the time when we read a book, it'll be a PDF because it's more accessible for people. But yeah, I don't know. What am I forgetting?
The crime thing.
Oh, and then yeah, a lot of the literature that we give out is some that Curtis got from this organization called Crime Think. And I'll put that. It's an anarchist literature. They talk about capitalism being a pyramid scheme. They talk about the lie that police are there to protect the people, and more like they're there to protect property or elites' interests or whatever, and just kind of general anarchist lit. I don't know, but and so that's stuff that we'll usually give away, and so that'll be part of the free store. We have just tons of literature that are like zines and pamphlets, whereas the library, I think there are a couple of zines in there, but mostly it's like books, and like soft cover mostly.
Shout out to Lorenzo Camboa Irving. He was on episode 58. If y'all don't know who he is, you need to go back and watch the episode 58. He was in the Black Panther Party briefly. He was in SNCC, the Student Non-Coordinating, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He published a book called Anarchism and the Black Revolution in 1978, I believe, while he was in prison. And his story can be documented. I'm trying to get, per his recommendation, I've been in communication with Dr. Modibo Kadali and Andrew Zonneveld, who Andrew wrote the introduction to a book that I think was published last year. It's called Intimate Direct Democracy. And it's the intersection between anarchism and ecology. And it talks about a maroon community from the state of Florida. And I really wanted to get them on the forum because we do have a lot of people in my audience that are interested in anarchism in general, anarchy. Jay Carrico is going to be on for the 4th time this upcoming week. They kind of introduced anarchy to my audience for the first time. So I want to give a shout out to Jay Carrico for coming back onto the forum. So we do have a lot of these topics that would be of interest to my audience, and also the awareness of safe sex and condom use, and pretty much all the issues we've covered today. We really did cover a lot of different topics today, I felt. And the People's Party of Texas isn't what you think of when you think of obviously the duopoly, but just some of these parties in general, the PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation, Peace and Freedom Party, the Green Party. I feel like a lot of these organizations and these political parties have their deficiencies and their shortcomings. I like it because this is a one-of-a-kind opportunity, I feel. I don't think I've ever talked to a group of people who haven't really emphasized their part of it. You're really more so, you're a guide for the community, you're a source for the community, and it's really a place for the community to grow. And is the opposite approach that people are taking, because even in these organizations that may share a lot of similar views and ideologies, there's still a hierarchy. There's a top down. It's still top down, and it's not a community driven organization. And so I think the People's Party of Texas, hopefully more people are taking that template. I don't know if there are any comparable groups that you all would recommend for my audience who may be interested in the whole idea of sociocracy and horizontalism. Are there groups that you all work with that my audience may be aware of, could be aware of, that are doing similar work of the People's Party of Texas?
I know that Curtis is involved with IWW, which is the Industrial Workers of the, I want to say of the world, but I don't think it's that.
Yeah.
But it's IWW, and he has kind of talked about some of the things that we do, and them and DHREAM, and I think another organization. It's like we try to spread these ideas, and a lot of people, especially in these circles, are kind of like, like, first of all, it's an entire shift of like the way of thinking, because we're used to be like, who's in charge, who's my boss, and all that. So it's kind of like strange. But then they're like, yeah, like empowerment and all, like actually being heard, and somebody wants to work with me towards the same goal. I think that all sounds good. And so some organizations have expressed an interest, and we had a horizontal democracy training not too long ago. And I think a couple of new people came to that and learned and are spreading that. I think I've lost a couple of jobs because I'm trying to spread it everywhere. Like not actual jobs, but like job interviews, because I mentioned it because I was just like very passionate about it. And I see it as a solution. Like when they give a problem, there's a lot of things that it would solve. A lot of bureaucracy that would be taken out, just by having that. But I don't know, other, like I said, people have been interested, and I hear people that say they practice it, but then a couple organizations I have joined, it's like I've literally heard the word rank, like, oh, this person ranks higher than me, and I'm just like, how are you really horizontal if you're talking about ranking? Like, I mean, it's not like a talent or a merit ranking. It's like literally, this is your position in the organization. And so that still disturbs me. I don't know if you can think of any.
Besides the ones we've mentioned, yeah, not many people like are doing this. No, I really can't. But again, yeah, aside from the ones we've already mentioned now, we hope that'll change soon.
Yeah.
We hope that this idea can, you know, I believe in it as well, and yeah, I hope it can pick up traction. Yeah, it works for us for sure.
Yeah.
I think it would work for a lot of other people and organizations. Yeah.
Well, I think it's when the platform continues to grow, Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum, I'm going to continue to have people on like yourselves. I'm not going to forget about any of these people that came up with us. You know, that's what we have to start doing. And I've been saying this the last 3 or 4 episodes, especially that if you're really in it to support independent media, like there are a couple of channels like mine, but I try to resort from the clickbait stuff. We really try to have intimate, serious conversations to try to promote social change, get people to test their neighbors, have conversations with people. You can't assume what's in that person's mind. Sure, they're telling you one thing, but after the conversation, who's to say that down the road that conversation doesn't influence that person? And that we got to start talking to people. We can't got to stop writing people off, and that's what's encouraged to keep the divide and conquer intact. We got to stop doing that, and so we do the opposite on the forum. I've tried to get conservative minded people on. It's like, how am I supposed to learn from that person? How's that person supposed to learn from me if we don't communicate? And a couple of people I've been unsuccessfully able to book, but I get very encouraging messages, even from people who decide not to come onto the forum for different reasons. Sometimes it's just simply a timing thing. But people are watching the forum. Like I said, millions of people are watching. Accounts that have millions of subscribers and watchers are following the forum. I know that they are, but so I believe you guys will grow too. I know you guys are going to grow, and it doesn't seem like it, but it is worth it. All the work that you're doing is worth it. And I'm going to continue to promote that great work that you do in the community. That's what we have to start doing. And just to give a slight advertisement before you all have any departing words, we will have a presidential forum hosted exclusively on Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum in December. The details will come out in a few weeks. So instead of watching Fox News and CNN, you can get some actual, real, organic conversation from people running outside of the blue-red team, and you can, yours truly will be hosting it. So, I'm not going to let these people off the hook easily. And we welcome any viewer questions. Send them in to KikoFreeThinker@gmail.com for that presidential forum that will take place in December on Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. There's going to be 5 candidates that will participate in this forum: a libertarian, we have a Green Party candidate, and we have 3 independent candidates running for president of the United States that you won't hear about otherwise if you didn't follow this forum. But I wanted to throw the conversation back to Osita and Athena. If you have any final words from our audience before we go today, I've enjoyed this episode 69, and I hope you all are able to share this on your platforms, and so we can grow this thing into what it needs to be grown into. But I appreciate you guys' participation, presence, friendship, camaraderie, and conversation today. But do you have final words from our audience?
You want to go?
You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I this was great. I really appreciate giving us the time and the platform to talk about our organization and also talk about really important issues that are affecting all of us. I always enjoy it every time I'm here. And yeah, I can't wait to see you become big time. I'm definitely gonna check out your presidential forum in December. Looking forward to that now. But yeah, thank you again for having us. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. Check out peoplespartyoftexas.org. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also say thank you so much for having us. It was great. it's not often that you get to talk about these things and people understand what you're talking about. It's not like oh my gosh, I have to explain my frustration to somebody that also doesn't just, like at least you're having a base level of understanding. So it's really nice. And I am ready for your YouTube to blow up. And so, yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's not going to forget about us. Hooray. And I would say to anybody, yeah, look us up, but also if you are afraid of, the way things are and you want there to be something else, you can build it. And all you need is some friends, and you might make them on the way. Like, that's basically what happened to us. And it's really cool, and it's worth it because it gives you hope again when it feels like there's no, even if it's not this, doing something gives you hope again that you may have lost. And it also reminds you that there's so much more than just the blue and red. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, and this is great too, because a few people have asked about the People's Party of Texas. I always refer to episode 25 I tell people, watch that for yourselves. This is it's a great relationship that we have, I think, because it's about starting from your mind. That's one thing that hopefully people can't take away from you. That's one thing that you do have control of if you do have the power to gain control of your own mind. And that is to think about things outside of what we're normally portrayed with and presented with. And I think that's the perfect thing about the People's Party of Texas, is that there's not this focus on what we associate with the political party. You use the name People's Party of Texas, but when you go into detail with it, you understand, okay, this is something completely different. And that kind of leaves me with questions too for the next time we come on together. When you said that you can't really think of any comparable groups like that, that raises up a bunch of issues, in itself, and the question is, why isn't there more groups like the People's Party of Texas around? I mean, we have so many people, like-minded people with those types of inclinations, but why don't they have the organizational capacity, or why won't they put the organizational capacity together to create a decentralized platform as opposed to what we're accustomed to? I don't know. Maybe those are questions for another conversation. I'm still intrigued by the structure of sociocracy and the horizontal model. But beautiful people, episode 70. I don't know who we have coming up because we could slip in a few people here and there. But I want to say enjoy the rest of your beautiful days. I have some things to take care of as far as family is concerned. As you can see, Jasmine, she crashed the end of the conversation. But we will have a wonderful day. Beautiful people, take care of yourselves. Remember, you can't unthink free thought, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.